I don't think that you ever set out to be a CEO. Something that just happens. I'm really honest with myself. I'm a salesman first and foremost, and I put a CEO hat on every day.
I wanted to talk about becoming a CEO. What was the biggest change between being the chief customer officer to the CEO? What you expected?
That is a great question, Gareth. I don't think that you ever set out to be a CEO. And if I'm really honest, I don't think there's a set of skills that make you a CEO. I think it's something that just happens. And I don't think, I certainly, if I'm really honest with myself, I'm a salesman first and foremost, and I put a CEO hat on every day, having taken off my sales hat. What I've really learned more than anything else, as I became a CEO is, it is lonelier than you can ever anticipate. People often talk about the loneliness of a CEO, but there is an acute loneliness that you get as a CEO in your as you're running and growing a business. And so what I really realized is very, very quickly is you just need great people around you. You know,
Yeah,
I yeah, it is the standing on the shoulders of giants is, I think, the best type of leadership. And
sure.
so bringing in people that really complement you and are additive to your culture and what you're trying to create, I think was my very early lesson of being a CEO. I was very lucky in the early years. I had great support from the former chief exec of Ideagen, who was my chairman, and was brilliantly supportive. My brother was still here at that point in those early years as well. So I was very lucky that I had that early support network in what is probably the most difficult bit, which is that first 12 to 18 months of
Yeah.
becoming a CEO for the first time. And subsequent to that, it's just about the people. Um, and if you get great people, then you are surfing their wave. And I've just been lucky enough to surf the wave that they're creating each and every day.
Delegation done well is probably is up there with one of the most important things that a CEO needs to get right. What is the key and the secret to good delegation?
I think, to be fair, Gareth, it's both an art and a science, because I think you can read every book and you can read the sort of philosophical approach to how do I delegate, but it fundamentally has to come from within you as an individual, in the
Yeah.
belief that other people are better at doing it than you are. And even if they're not better at doing it, that they will, through experience and time and coaching and mentoring, be better at doing it than you are. And if you have that as your sort of belief system, then once you've got over the hump of the first two or three where it all goes horribly wrong, and you sort of want to scream and shout, but once you get over that belief, then it really makes a big difference. And I've been internally in Ideagen, we have something called "there's no such thing as failure, only feedback." It's
Yeah.
we absolutely believe in that. And that just encourages delegation all the way through the organization. And that's delegation in the right way, not just passing the buck to somebody else, because we run a responsibility accountability consulting firm model, a RACI model internally. But it's about delegation to enable empowerment, to enable people to grow and develop, and take away those glass ceilings that often exist within organizations because people never get the chance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's move on to regulation and compliance then, which is your bag. And you guys have been in this world for a very long time. So has the evolution of AI technology that we've seen accelerated in the last sort of 6 to 12 months? Has that changed a great deal in the compliance world then yet? Or have we got all this to come? Because there's going to be a lot more to regulate, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of things are talking to each other a bit more now. Everything's going to become more efficient. Things are going to get created more seamlessly through automation. How does this affect the world of compliance and regulation? then?
A bit of Oscar Wilde, really. The only certainties in life are death, taxes, and more regulation.
Yeah,
AI will create a whole new set of regulation on its own. I have no doubts at all over the next 3 to 5 years. And so for us, yeah, although AI is still be nascent within the regulatory and compliance industry. It's an emerging tech. We can see some future trends where, especially in things like the banking and finance insurance industries, within the aviation industry, around safety management, where you're able to really start driving that far more predictive behavior.
yeah,
I think, which is going to be really, really important, but also reducing some of the monotony of compliance within those industries and within those markets. And I think that's really important. If you can really drive some of those back office improvements as well, then AI moves from being that tick box into something that is absolutely embedded into a business. Then that becomes really advantageous for that organization and that organization's customers.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I think there's clearly going to be a lot more that need. I think AI needs to be regulated for a plethora of reasons, doesn't it? Because it can basically create imbalances. It could be biased towards certain outcomes and things like that. It's a bit of a minefield, I think, isn't it? Have you sort of been asked to work with regulators?
So you're absolutely right. AI doesn't have diversity and
Yeah,
inclusivity at its heart. So it has an unconscious bias, to use the sort of people term,
yeah,
and there's certainly some fairly embryonic conversations that are happening on that subject about exactly what does it look like, and how do we manage it. Although I, I'm aware of a few bodies that are looking to start to formalize that into medium term objectives of creating regulation around AI. But being honest, I think most bodies and most regulators have been taken by surprise at the pace of change over the last 3 to 4 months. I was certainly in a conversation not long ago with an unnamed body who was basically thinks AI was only invented 3 months ago when they saw about it in the newspaper. Uh,
yeah.
post the big front page announces on ChatGPT.